Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Sharon Jaffe Dan, Editor-in-Chief of Home&Design magazine. Welcome to our first episode of At Home. We've launched this monthly chat to enjoy some face-to-face time with our readers and the design community. Even though we're still virtual, we thought it would be a nice stand-in for the live in-person events that we all miss. It also gave me a reason to put on real clothes instead of pajamas today. Today, we're joined by Zoë Feldman of Zoë Feldman Design in Georgetown. By way of introduction, Zoë studied design at Parsons and then landed a position in New York with none other than Alexa Hampton. In 2003, she went out on her own and launched her own studio and later moved to Washington. Since then, Zoë has put her spin on many historic makeovers as well as newer residences throughout the region. Zoë describes her aesthetic as modernized classicism influenced by art, architecture, fashion, and of course, her clients. We are thrilled that one of Zoë's projects is on the cover of our new late fall issue. The owners purchased their 1905 home in DC's Bloomingdale neighborhood. It had already been renovated and they hired Zoë to put her spin and kind of inject soul back into the home and make it theirs. Among other things, today we'll learn how Zoë and her team work their magic in this beautiful, eclectic row house. We'll also be sure to leave some time for questions, so please write your questions in the question area and not in the chat. And now it is my pleasure to introduce Zoë Feldman.
Hi, Sharon.
Zoë, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good, welcome today.
Thanks for having me.
So how have you and your family been during this crazy time?
It's been an adjustment, I think, for everyone.
Right.
But working it out. I mean, we actually have been back at work for a while.
Mm-hmm.
We moved into an office space kind of during COVID, which was interesting.
Right,
And I think that's been helpful because we've probably had a little more contrast than the average people.
Mm-hmm.
We have a larger space than we need, and we'll be renting out like one of the levels. But for now, we have both spaces, so we've been able to keep our distance and still collaborate and stuff.
Right.
So that's helpful.
Right, that's great. And have your clients been working on their homes more than usual? Or people, spending time in their same four walls? Are they really demanding more of you these days?
Yeah, I think that was like an unanticipated sort of, I hate to use the word perk because that feels so gross and such a terrible time, but like that was something that was unanticipated. In the beginning, which I'm sure a lot of designers who are on this chat now, on this call now, probably experience, like there was a decent amount of pause with some of our existing clients. So that was kind of like, of course, nerve-wracking, and no one sort of knew where we were going. But yeah, actually things have been very busy for us, and I've heard for pretty much all designers or anyone sort of in the home industry, because I think people are home and recognizing all of the things they hate about their house and that they want to change them. And also I think seeing that we'll be using our houses more than we used to, just sort of going forward for a bit of time. And so like the importance, like the need to have them done correctly,
right,
is of greater importance than it was when we were always sort of like dining out and these kinds of things.
Right. That's a big shift. Well, today we are super excited. Our November-December issue just printed and copies were mailed this week. So no one has actually seen the cover except our staff. So I'm really excited that today we can kind of have a big reveal, which we usually don't get to do. And I'm going to be able to share our cover.
Wow.
And here it is.
That's so pretty. That's one of my favorite images.
Yeah, we love this home. And I love how you blended modern and vintage styles and have like such a nice eclectic array of furniture and art throughout the project. Here's the living room. This is a wider view of this shot. The cover and all of our photos are by Stacey.
Looks so good.
It looks amazing. So maybe you can tell us how this project evolved and what were your goals with the clients when you first started?
First, I want to apologize for this very sad backdrop because I'm noticing your amazing art behind you. I'm feeling very
You just moved.
yeah.
Totally understandable. You just
But
moved.
we are in the process of a renovation here, and by that I mean we are living in a space that is not at all renovated, but one day very soon will be.
Right.
But no, so I apologize for this very prison look.
No problem.
Okay, sorry. So about the project. Now you go because I completely derailed us.
So maybe you could start out by just telling what the overarching goals of the project were and how it evolved. I guess did the house kind of lack character when you first got there?
So it was kind of interesting. The house is a historic house in Bloomingdale, or townhome in Bloomingdale, and it'd been purchased by a developer, and the developer had sort of done what developers sort of have a bad reputation of doing, and not all developers are like this, but using a broad sweeping generalization. I love this. Kind of just deconstructed it, but like too much, and kind of without a lot of order or like thought. And so there were bones there. They'd just kind of been removed and replaced with things that weren't historically accurate at all. So the clients were moving from a historic home in Richmond and really wanted to bring the history back into the home as much as possible. So that was what we set out to do.
Right. And what is kind of your theory on how you mix items of such different provenance? I know in the living room here, we have a vintage daybed that you found on First Dibs. There's a Biedermeier game table here and an acid etched mid-century coffee table. How do you make that work so seamlessly?
Thank you. It's not always this seamless. This one's really good. Okay, so I think that what's important is, every project's different. In this project, and I think when you're working in historic homes, I think it's important to honor the history of the home, right? So in that way, we like to create to pronunciate like any sort of like details that we can that are historic, like maybe trim, or in this case, we added in a marble mantle that wasn't there, whatever had been there had been removed and replaced with something that wasn't beautiful. And so we put this in. And then when it comes to decorating, we sort of, but also even with the home's bones, there is a level of modernization to them because we want all of our homes to look relevant, right? We're not trying to go backward. We're just trying to sort of look backward to inform where we are today. Right. So by infusing like old pieces and new pieces, you end up actually modernizing a home. And in a lot of these pieces where they are older and they are antiques, we also modernize through paint or fabric choices. Right. You can see also a lot of the antiques, and most of the antiques are more straight lined rather than like a cabriolet. That some of the Regency pieces, Biedermeier pieces, there's certain antiques that are a lot easier to weave in with modern design, modern elements like this Mastercraft coffee table that's like a really cool 70s table, right? But it has this just simple kind of Parson style.
So they're more streamlined. And then I know you employed, I think you used French curio cabinet black. Was it just brown wood before?
It was, yes.
And then you painted the stairwell black as well.
So that's sort of like something that for everyone listening, that's an easy way to make your stairwell like a little chicer really fast, which is, you'll often see where the railing might be wood or black and the balusters remain white, which are, the little poles. And we almost exclusively, but I can't say that exactly, but almost exclusively, I'd say 80% of the time, actually, we paint the entire, like we just black out the whole thing and it ends up creating like an iron look. And also when it isn't maybe the most perfect staircase and railing and things, it allows it to just, it elevates it without having to just gut it and redo it.
Right. That makes a lot of sense. And then I guess you might consider a modern color, this wonderful performance velvet on your Baker sofa here. How did that color come about? Was that kind of a push for your clients, or it just warms the whole place up? I love it.
Thank you. No, they sort of fell in love with it. I mean, I think there's a misconception that neutrals have to be like ivory or putty or white or gray or black, and that's not actually true.
Mhm.
Neutrals in our world, or the way we perceive neutrals and we use neutrals, are like essentially organic tones,
Mhm.
and anything that you would find sort of naturally. And so this is, thank you. This is this like russety sort of, I don't, it's like not quite russet. I guess it's a little bit more like an ochre russet
Mhm.
kind of vibe. Actually like feels very neutral in the space. So you can see how it plays off of like the Biedermeier chest, and it's pretty tonal against that. So
Right.
it's not quite as vibrant when you're seeing it as vibrant, because it's not what you would typically see,
Mhm.
but it doesn't compete and it doesn't take the whole stage. It still creates a canvas for everything else.
Exactly. And it is a nice contrast with a lot of the grays and more subdued shades.
Yeah, it just sort of needed like a moment. I think that in every room,
Mhm.
you need to have like moments of like interest, right? And you have to decide where that's going to be, and where you're going to like relax a little bit and like leave room for something else, and what's going to be interesting. And and that's like always this sort of balance we're playing with and trying to create, and sort of doing until the very end. Like it's like a chessboard, though I've never played chess, but that sort of thing. That's probably what it's like, kind of moving things around until you get it right.
Yeah.
Maybe
Well,
like
I love the lighting too. And I think to me, it feels like the lighting throughout the project here, we're moving into the dining room, is very sculptural. Some of it's almost mid-century. It's all very statement making. Like, how do you think how did you choose the lighting, and what role is it playing here?
the lighting, for the most part, is a little bit more modern. The clients love art. I love art. Like, art to me is very important. To me, it's very important in a home, and it's very important it sort of gets its moment. And we didn't want, well, on one hand, like in the living room, we didn't want the lighting to be the star, so to speak. We wanted it to just kind of like be a canvas for the art.
Uh-huh.
In the dining room, we sort of wanted the light to be like art, sort of like a Calder, like a mobile. Right. So this actually rotates throughout the day, which, is sort of like a nod to a Calder. So, and we just like that because of the simplicity of the dining room. It felt sort of natural, and you walk by the dining room. It's not set back like some are, where it's sort of tucked away. It's like actually sort of an alcove. So you walk through it, you experience it as a public space, as like a full public space. So it kind of felt natural to have something that's sort of a mobile.
Yeah, that's really cool. Do you remember who makes that light? I could look that. I didn't look that up. Yeah, it'll be in our story.
Okay, Zach is telling me Lawson Benning. We are wrong. It is his fault.
We'll refer back to the magazine. And how did the black ceiling come about? It gives it a really dramatic mood.
That's fun, right? I've done this a few times. So in this space, again, I think it was like a really beautiful way to highlight this light, number one. Also, in a dining room, we like to have a sort of moodier impact and effect. It's kind of like when you're dining, in a dining room, it's typically in a little bit more of a formal environment or more of an entertaining environment, in which case you can sort of imagine like the lights are a bit dimmed, and it's later into the evening. And so I prefer a moodier feel. The client fell in love with this. I think is this a Philip Jeffries paper? Yeah. No, it's Pierre Frey.
Yeah.
Right. They fell in love with this Pierre Frey wall covering, which was great because it actually allowed for the art to layer onto it. But it also wasn't quite as moody as like we might have naturally done. So by painting the ceiling, it dropped it and allowed for a little more intimacy in the space.
Right.
It's created a little more of a jewel box feel.
Right. And we see what that wallpaper really is having a moment too. What is your philosophy behind wallpaper? When do you think it has the most impact, and are you using it a lot? There's so many fabulous papers out now and textures.
First of all, I'm being told that is not a Lawson Benning. It's actually Andrew Meyer.
Okay. That, I just got the same news brief from our writer.
Andrew Nyer. Okay, moving on. Wallpaper, wall coverings, things like that. Did you say like how often should we be using them or how to use them?
Yeah, what's sort of your philosophy and rule of thumb of when you use it and what kind of impact does it have?
I think it's kind of, these are very kind of hard rules because every space asks for something different, and we've engaged spaces where we are overloading on wallpapers, and it makes a lot of sense for the space.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think there's a hard and fast rule. I think that probably if you're sitting at home or you're thinking about how to use wallpaper, oh God, I would say maybe pick, if I were starting off trying to figure out how to use wallpaper in my home, I might decide to choose it in one public space, meaning like the living room, the dining room, a space that everyone will see, and then probably in something like a powder room. And in the powder room would be where I would say that's where you probably can take a little more risk because you don't really live in the powder room. You experience it for a couple moments a day, maybe.
Right.
And you don't have to, you won't really get sick of it because you don't spend enough time in there too.
Right. You can go really dramatic.
Right, exactly. And then if you're a little more modern, I would say you're going to end up in more textural moments, something more similar to this. And if you're a little more classic, then you're going to probably want more of a floral pattern or more of some sort of pattern.
Right. Sounds good.
It's a little tough of a question because it's like very general and very specific to projects, but that might give someone a little bit of a landscape.
Right. This is a beautiful detail shot of the dining room.
Thank you.
In the kitchen, I know that you overhauled the kitchens and baths in this house. What condition was the kitchen in, and what work did you need to do to kind of give it the soul that you wanted?
The kitchen was sort of, from what I can remember, a little late to the game. Like I feel like we thought we might sort of keep things how they were, at least to some degree. And then it kind of was one of the scope creep moments. Mm-hmm. So the cabinets were there. They were not this color. I think they were white. And the white floating shelves were wood. And there was no backsplash, or if there was, it was forgettable. And the plumbing fixtures were sort of builder grade. And so, and the cabinet hardware also was very builder grade. So we decided to do sort of what we call like lipstick on a pig, which is like create a new space without totally destroying a budget.
Right.
So the way that we did that was the easiest way to do that all of the time is through paint, and to paint your cabinetry. Mm-hmm. Like that will absolutely create the biggest impact.
Right.
So we did that. We knew we would do that once we started to like say, you know, we're creating such a beautiful space. It's such a bummer to think like the kitchen doesn't get any love because it's very public. It's like basically at the end of this vista. Mm-hmm. So then it was like, okay, let's do the cabinetry. And then it was like, let's do the plumbing fixtures. Let's get in some unlacquered brass so it feels more soulful and more heirloom.
Yeah.
And then it was sort of, well, you're really going to want a backsplash because it feels so undone. So then it was, you know, so you can see how things went on.
Pretty much an all new kitchen, yeah.
Well, and it didn't, you know, what's nice is we kept the appliances, we kept the cabinetry, we kept the floating shelves. So we were able to retain a lot.
Right.
So it's sort of more of an exercise in restraint, and also like even within the restraint, how you can get like a really solid outcome that appears as though you may have started from scratch.
Exactly, and it gives it an entirely different personality. Well, I love this cabinet color is Farrow & Ball's Card Room Green, and recently Benjamin Moore released its color of the year, which is really, really similar. So I think you are really a trendsetter, Zoe, for picking a similar color. And why do you think this color resonates for people right now? I know so much goes into choosing these colors, and they're different, but yet it seems like it's a similar shade.
I think again, it's kind of got this neutral appeal while still having a lot of personality. It's chalky. So it's not so saturated that people are, whoa, a green kitchen, right? It just feels very natural to the eye. In this kitchen in particular, at the end of the kitchen is a bunch of glass that looks outside. So it sort of brings the outdoors in. and has this very like cohesive feel to it.
Mhm.
But I think people right now are interested in more colored cabinetry and playing with color right now, and moodiness, and also I think like tonal moments. And this all feels very tonal, just kind of very clean and simple, but without being white. I think people are looking, what we found is people are trying to figure out how not to have a white kitchen, but still not have something they're going to hate in a few years.
Right. Well, it's really refreshing because we've seen so many white kitchens and I love them, but it's just, they get to be a little the same.
Right.
But there's almost something a little nostalgic or very timeless about this color too, to me.
Absolutely. I mean, Farrow & Ball does that probably best. And it's a lot in their curation, and they are such like an heirloom type business.
Right.
And so you kind of know when you go down that path that you're going to be already, it's absolutely a classic color. They toy with a few that verge on not, but for the most part, it's really hard to go wrong. It's so well edited. And edited for exactly what you're saying, for it to feel like it's kind of always been there, and not to, I think, create like any whiplash effect. So yeah, it kind of just made a bunch of sense.
Yeah. Well, now
our client really loves green. You can see it. Green.
They love green, and this is the owner's bedroom, and they selected a historic William Morris wallpaper, which is also just a really timeless move and just sort of envelops them in this wonderful green, endless spring, I guess.
Yeah, so this was like also a last minute decision. We'd already developed the bedroom, and we knew we were going to do this Farrow & Ball light blue, which is one of my favorite colors. And we were really stoked about it.
Blue trim, yeah.
Yep. And we were really excited for it. And it was perfect and great. And then I can't remember exactly how it happened. I think I stumbled upon this William Morris. I've been on like a major William Morris kick for a bit. Well, since I worked with Mark Hampton, obviously. And then I sort of paused for a minute, and now I've been back in for like, I don't know, a couple of years, and like pretty deep. So I think I showed it to them, and she immediately was like, I'm obsessed with this. This is everything. And he was, as a lot of men would be, was a bit like pump the brakes. I don't know what, like, this is a lot. This is flowers. I'm not sure I'm digging this.
Yeah.
But then over time, we were able to show him through renderings and like different things that like, it wasn't going to feel this way. It was going to feel pretty neutral. I mean, if you squint, it almost just gives you a sort of singular color.
Right.
So, and also what you don't see is there's built-ins across from you. You can kind of see them actually in the mirror, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
So there's a whole wall of built-ins across from you. Yeah, you can see them there. There's a data. There's a lot of interruption. So it wasn't just all flowers all the time. There was enough interruption.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's amazing.
The gorgeous combination, and I love that big window seat. So that was another addition. So you installed and designed the built-ins and the window seat.
Yes.
Really, really nice.
So we're like, okay, one of my pet peeves is like window seats that don't do anything for you. So like that sort of window seat that just has this little like 1 inch, 2 inch cushion, and like it doesn't look comfy at all.
Right.
Like we're real into, let's build out like the greatest window seat of all time, where you're going to chill all day and read a book, or like if you're a new mom, be with your baby, or and get up.
That's like totally a place for a nap.
Exactly. And exactly right. Like to have like, so you don't have to lay in your bed during the day if you want to take a nap, like that sort of vibe. Right. And so we do these pretty often, I would say, where there's these spaces where we're like, let's put a day bed in, you know, but let's make it the raddest day bed ever. And you're so, it allows you also to like pull all these pillows in, and so they're our favorite, and that's what this is.
Right. I'm curious, what did you do in the ceiling? I don't think we see the ceiling in here.
I think we just painted the ceiling like a warm white.
And now we have the owner's bathroom, which I think you also did some major work in, right? All new tile and fixtures.
When we started
this view and the shower.
Yeah, so when we started on the project, actually the bath like hadn't been done. It was like very undone, because when they purchased it sort of at the 11th hour, and they kind of said, okay, don't do anything else, we'll finish from here, the owners. So we were just sort of left with like this open space, which was nice because we were able to reconfigure some things a little more easily than if it had been tiled and all these sorts of things. So we reconfigured the space and made it very usable, so that there were like a double vanity and a nice big shower. We added a lot of storage, which I don't think you can see all of it. but we ended up having a sort of problem in the shower, which ended up sort of like in our favor. So where the shower head is mounted with the beautiful exposed plumbing, originally, I think we were putting it on the back wall, but like one's an exterior wall, one's a party wall. There were all these problems with every wall. And so we were like, can we mount it on the glass? Like I personally had never done this.
Right.
And we talked with the builder and we were like, let's just mount it on the glass. And it actually ended up, it's one of my favorite features, which will often happen like in the moments of, oh no, oh God, like how are we going to get through this problem? Well, often comes like the most beautiful moments because I think it forces you to think outside of the box.
Right.
And that's exactly right. And when you walk into the bathroom, you actually walk in to the back of this plumbing. So it's sort of perfect. You get this kind of where you never get to see the full exposed plumbing.
Right. And it's
so now we're like, well, how can we do this again? So that all worked out.
Very, very serendipitous.
Yeah.
So,
and this is an example of using one tile and laying it differently, which I think for people listening, like this is a great way if you're a little freaked out by adding in like too many different colors, or I know it can get very overwhelming, especially for homeowners, like, how do I even pick things? There's so much. So if you're in that moment and you find something you like, this is a great example of like using the exact same tile, but running it like herringbone on the floor and running bond or like in a brick pattern on the walls.
Right. And it's also here herringbone.
And then we also use, you can see the Carrara baseboard, which is a nice little touch, and little moments of Carrara in liner. So kind of like revisiting that stone in different spaces too. Yeah. The stone is also the same.
Such a beautiful detail. I love this chair too. Is that an antique?
Yeah, it's a hall chair, an antique hall chair. I love hall chairs. So this is just because we wanted to add a little bit of wood, and we also did it above the toilet. There's some wood, and there's actually wood on the faucet, on the levers. That's actually walnut. Yeah. So the clients are very down to earth, and they like the idea of it feeling a little more organic. So with the glazed brick, which is actually navy, with the glazed brick and the little wood details and the unlacquered metals, it all felt very organic. Right.
No, that's great. And this is one space that we didn't have room for in the magazine, but I couldn't resist showing this wonderful powder room, and it's another fabulous green shade. So tell us how this room came about.
So our client, who loves green, she fell in love with a green tile. And when it came down to it, the cost was pretty prohibitive. And in a powder room, you really don't need tile on your walls. It's not a wet space. So it wasn't necessary to spend the money. And like all projects, we had to figure out where we were going to splurge and where we were going to save. And so we all agreed that this probably wasn't the move. So then we found this beautiful Faramball Bancha color that's actually mid-century modern. And it was the exact color of the tile she was obsessing over. So that felt like, well, obviously we do the paint.
Right.
But the paint sort of felt like we were giving in too much, like by only doing the paint, if that sort of makes sense. Oh, but also before we agreed to the green paint, she then fell in love with this Pierre Frey wallpaper that you can see in the mirror. That's actually a 1920s female Parisian artist drew, and it's of an orgy. And she's like, let's put this in. And it's actually beautiful. And he was like, I can't do that. Like my mom will come here and no. So that was like, okay, no. So then we landed on the green paint. And then we were like, well, we really want the orgy to show up here. How are we gonna do this? Oh, let's frame it. And then it was sort of like, let's do a gallery wall because that's so cool. And it can change all the time. It can evolve. You can get different art. You can move the art around.
Right.
Anyway, it created interest. And so actually in the end, I think this was so much better of a move, and even better than doing the whole thing in the orgy paper, even better than doing the whole thing in tile, because this is so much more interesting and unexpected.
Right. Well, you led me right to my next question. I was going to ask you how you create such cool gallery walls. We've seen them in many rooms in this house, and I know a lot of people probably would love some tips on sort of do's and don'ts of how to make it work.
Sure. Okay. Well, if you're not using FrameBridge, you should be, because FrameBridge, they're amazing. We use them all the time because they allow for framing to become actually accessible and affordable. and beautiful framing. So that's the first thing, because for a long time it was just so expensive to frame art, or you had to do like the whole Michaels route of just kind of like figuring it out, you know, buying this certain size. Anyway, so this opened up our world a lot. Everyone felt a little more comfortable framing all of their things. So now we do that all the time. We have all this framing. And the way that you do it basically is, I would say, especially as a beginner, pick 3 colors. So that might be like brass, silver, and black. And then probably in odd numbers, keeping like, you know, maybe if you're doing, so bad at math. Okay, let's see. If you're doing, you might want 3 gold, 3 silver, and 2 black, right? You want it like pretty balanced.
And you're talking about the frames themselves.
The frames themselves, exactly. And that allows you to feel more comfortable playing with different things. Then you just sort of lay everything out on the floor. Well, first we measure the space and see how much we have. Put that on the floor, put everything out, and then you can use templates to put them up.
Mm-hmm.
Cut out little templates.
Right.
Does that kind of make sense?
That totally makes sense.
I did that fast, so I hope that made sense.
But how do you kind of know what art will work together?
Oh, okay, I see. You know, it's not actually that complicated. It is a lot more in the frame and in the scale and in the balance of the sizing than it is in the imagery. Mm-hmm. Because it should feel pretty collected, right? It shouldn't feel like you went out one day and bought a gallery wall, unless you're trying to do like a series of 9 of the same botanicals or something like this. Yeah. But in the event that you're just doing this, it should feel like it's a whole bunch of stuff you've had forever, some you got from your family, some you acquired traveling, and you just kind of are throwing it all together and seeing what happens. And the frames themselves unify things.
Right. That makes sense. That totally makes sense. Well, thank you so much, Zoe. I think we'd love to open it up to a few questions. And I think somehow we may not have enabled the Q&A. So if people have questions via chat, that might be the way to go. I'm not sure how to enable questions at the moment.
I can definitely not help you here.
Here's a question. Somebody would like to know where the carpet is from in the living room, which we can go back to that.
I think, is it Old New House? I think it might be from Old New House.
Uh-huh, Old New House.
Yes, Zach is saying yes. And this
is that an online source?
It is an online source, yeah. And Old New House is great because I think you can take them out on approval for a few days.
Right. Oh,
and
that's really
New York,
yeah.
New York, whatever. And they'll send them and you can like see how they look in your space, which is really important with rugs. They look very different online than in person, and you can send back things you don't like.
Right. Well, we're getting lots of great questions.
I see them now.
Yeah. So Katie would like to, our friend Katie would like to know if you do you help clients select art as well?
Oh, absolutely. It's like basically my favorite thing.
In this house, about how much was theirs and how much did you help them with?
Their piece that you can see in the mirror in the entry was theirs. Mm-hmm. I think they may have had one other piece and everything else was sourced. Mm-hmm. And actually one of the people on our team, Tenley, she did a lot of the art, a lot of the figure art, not this one you're looking at, but a bunch of the figure art. Yeah, I think we show some of her work in the magazine. That's really cool. We through her, through First Dibs, through Cherish, through different galleries. The one in the dining room is from St. Frank. It's a textile. Yeah, I love that. Susani. That was a present for his wife, like at the end of the project. Oh, that's so nice. Well, our friend Sally would like to know, what is your greatest challenge? Oh God, like in life, time, no. Management, time management. My greatest challenge within designing. Personally, what do I feel most challenged by? I think okay, that's such an open-ended question. I'm trying to figure out how to answer that. I think sometimes our biggest challenge with clients is giving them the space to collaborate with us, but also allowing them to like let us, this project, there's what I'm going to say. This project turned out as beautifully as it did because we had clients who trusted our process. And they had opinions for sure, and they had ideas of what they wanted, and they certainly were comfortable saying no to things that we might have presented. But they gave us the perfect amount of space to know that we would give them a product they would like because they infused enough of their opinion into it. But they really gave us the space to just do what we do best, which is all of this.
Right.
So our biggest challenge, I think, is finding the balance between like, we want the client to feel like a full participant, but also we just know things from our honing our skills for,
Right.
I'm so young, it hasn't been that long, but you know, a bit.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And I think when they have buy-in, it just feels more like it's theirs and not that somebody just brought them a lot of cool stuff that doesn't have meaning.
Right, and we don't want to do that.
Right. One of our questions, the framing place is Framebridge, which has, I think they're online and they have locations in Bethesda and DC. Where are your favorite places to shop for vintage? You must be looking all the time.
So online we use First Dibs and Cherish a ton. We also use some Palm Beach resources, Circa Who, and Palm Beach Regency. And locally, we love David Bell. We actually are so lucky because we're right next door. We're in Book Hill in Georgetown now, and Marston Lewis. Good, right? David Bell, we use a ton. We also use like Goodwood, which is really affordable.
Yeah.
And they're all for different. Miss Pixies is like fun. You can find great finds. And they're all sort of for different things, right? Like David Bell for us is like probably the most like modern. You'll get like your sort of like really interesting, like one-off pieces.
Right.
Loose is like more French and like classic, really beautiful. Goodwood is like a heartier, lot more affordable. Like I'd say like, yeah, maybe a little, some mid-century pieces. Yeah. Like, and Miss Pixies is kind of all over the board. Just like you have to go in there and be able to see outside of what is happening.
Right, right. Well, we really do have a lot of wonderful local vintage sources. Someone asked about the sofa in the living room, the fabric and I know it's a Baker sofa and it's I don't recall who the velvet, it's a performance velvet.
I think it's Elitis or yeah. Elitis, E-L-I-T-I-S.
Yes.
Okay, did I say that all right? Okay.
I think Elitis. I'm not sure. We have a question if the painting was meant to sort of pick up the orange.
Total mistake.
If that was
like we found that thing, I think we were like installing. So at the end we style our projects, right? They look just sort of like these beautiful canvases, and then we come in with all of these objects, like these amazing things, and then we hang all the art and we put all the objects out, and then everything looks a million times better. And we were in that process. It's generally like a few weeks, the process. And we discovered this in this like guest room that had just sort of been chilling and we hadn't engaged at all. And we're like, whoa, this is such a cool piece. And the clients had mentioned it to us and they're like, oh, do you like it? Okay. Like we hadn't sort of thought, and it worked perfectly. So that was just also a very serendipitous moment.
Right.
That type of thing seems to happen a lot.
Yes. Someone asked us who fabricated the built-ins in the bedroom.
A guy named Kelvin Veney, V-E-N-E-Y. His company is called The Craft. And I've been using him. My very first project I worked on in DC, I used him, and I've been using him ever since. He's amazing.
That's great. Well, Zoe, I think that's about all the questions we can take during our time frame, but we appreciate your time so much. We can't wait for you to see the magazine. And it will be hitting people's doorsteps in the next week if you get the magazine. If you don't, you can subscribe online or find it at homeanddesign.com. And Zoe's full feature is online. Here's the address. It's the full HTTPS, but if you go to Home and Design, Zoë Feldman, you'll see the article in full, and it's written by Julie Sanders, and it's a great story.
Yeah. And if there's anything we didn't get to, I see there's a lot of questions we didn't get to, feel free to go on our Instagram and DM us, and we'll answer as many as we can there for sure.
Great idea. All right. Thank you, Zoe. It was great to see you.
Thanks,
And
Sharon.
hope to see you in person someday soon.
Okay, and thank you so much for publishing this. We're so excited.
Thanks for all your help. Take care.
Okay, bye guys.